Insular economies create sellers markets where you pick the work you want. If you're going to accept work from outside of your community, there's a list of criteria it has to meet for you. That's what that sort of in-group preference will create, that's lacking in the current economic infrastructure. You we have a buyer's market for most things, including your services, not a seller's market.
Correct. Right.
And so the widespread global economic situations, they detract from the possibility of you being able to choose your work like a sovereign person would.
A good example of this that we got to basically see happen in real time, and I wish I had some documentation to back this up because I don't exactly have firsthand knowledge, but there have been black economies and gray economies around marijuana since the 1960s, since the 1950s. And as social trends changed, the government decided that it was better for them to regulate this economy than to try to persecute this economy. And people thought that was a good idea because it seemed like a mitigation of risk. But what ended up happening in Colorado and California and Oregon is it went from a seller's economy into a buyer's economy, and the amount of competition and the amount of people who are afraid for their livelihoods basically crashed the market. And that green rush then resulted in corporations filling the void where once your mom and pop individuals were running the show. And there's positive and negative takeaways from that. But even in Pennsylvania, where it's a medically licensed state to sell marijuana, the quality is lower, the price is higher, the taxes are going and being controlled by a state that we don't even trust, all for a little bit of freedom or risk mitigation.
Right.
And I think that at the end of the day, maybe people made that decision also because they didn't think past the end of their nose and just wanted to get stoned without being persecuted.
Sure.
Which is all good and dandy, but it doesn't create strong communities. And I think now there's even a danger of something that is and was a strong counter economy and something that actually uplifted people into being sort of turned into another form of status control, state control, and another form of doping of the community.
Yeah, another thing to add to the bread and circuses.
Right, because
Well, I think that marijuana and mind-altering substances in general, drugs in general, are a different beast because they're new infrastructures in a sense. Like drug trades have existed since people found out you could get high off stuff. But there is a way with other things, like the idea, the community garden ideas and planting edible forest gardens and things like that are replacements of existing infrastructure in a way that you find to be more natural and more efficient to actual human existence.
Yeah.
And I think those things, every new market that's going to pop up, as long as governmental control is at the level of governmental control, will experience that level of governmental control. And those boom and busts where the end of the black market era becomes the beginning of the regulated era. But with a thing like a community garden or just fixing your neighbor's windows or whatever, that's just a replacement for what's already there that can catch on more.
Well, I think at the bottom of this idea is that gray economies are better for the individual and better for the community. So the example of the gray economy around marijuana in California after 1995 was a good example. But this comes back to the idea of what is it? Of the harm principle, where the government or any authoritative state should not be getting involved in people's business except for the reason to limit harm on others.
Right.
So when they start regulating a community, they tell you that you can't collect rainwater, you can't have a food kitchen without being licensed, you can't operate a business in a building if it doesn't have the proper zoning.
You can't feed the homeless unless you're a licensed shelter.
Right. They will shut you down. They will fine you. They will leave you destitute due to some laws. But if people are allowed to act in their own self-interest and the self-interest of their economy or of their community, these economies will self-regulate.